Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
Guys, keep it down. I'm trying to talk here.
My name is George Hanna. I was one of the hosts of the George and Tony Entertainment Show, a podcast you probably never heard of. I have a new project scheduled to start this spring, and I hope you'll give it a listen. More importantly, though, I, along with my co-hosts, will be participating in Live Stream for the Cure this year. We hope you'll help fight cancer by listening to this podcasting telethon hosted by the Epic Film Guys, May 17th through the 19th, 2019, and contributing to the cause. For more information, check out livestreamforthecure.com. This promo is under construction, so keep your ears open for updates on my new project. And oh yeah, fuck cancer!
It is Sunday, March 3rd, 2019, and this is Breaking Late News for January and February 2019. And I want to welcome back Travis. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Hey, how you been? I haven't talked to you on air in a while.
I've been sick.
I know.
Right? That was kind of why there was no January. Couldn't get it worked in the month of January because I was sick. Yeah, that's kind of...
Yeah, unfortunately, that's very true.
That's kind of what it's been. That and the snow and general ugliness of winter, late winter.
The
us,
ugliness
right?
of winter. Yeah. Well, and knowing where you live, which is where I used to live growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of snow.
Right.
I remember when we were kids, there was snow.
Right.
But as we got older and whatnot, I don't remember winters being very strong at all.
Right.
And recently, you guys have been getting actual snow accumulation.
The month of February, we had 3 times the snowfall we have ever had.
3 times
Ever. Yeah.
Wow.
There hasn't been a day in February that there hasn't been snow actually on the ground. So, and for us, where we're at, like I said, we live down in a valley where we're kind of protected from getting real snow. It's been challenging.
Well, similarly, where I live, where we actually do get snow every year, and the elevation difference is only what, 2,000 feet?
Yeah, something like
between
that.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we almost broke the record for snowfall in February.
Yeah.
Snowfall accumulation in February, where I live, which is, that record was set decades ago, I think.
Right.
Lots of snow.
Yes.
My back is getting really tired of it.
I hear you.
All that shoveling. Okay. All right. Well, Travis, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm very happy that you could join me today. Perfect timing. It's the beginning of March, which means we can look backwards, which is the whole breaking late news aspect of this show. We're going to talk about some headlines that caught our eye starting in January, and then some things in February as well. And so we'll just get right to that and see how long it takes us to get through this news. But we're going to start back in January, go roughly in order of release of this information. And so the first thing I have here on the list, Travis, that I want to talk about, because I've been the happy recipient of this, is DC Comics joins Comixology Unlimited. And long time watchers and listeners of the podcast know that Travis does not like digital comics.
No,
not a fan.
Not a fan.
But this is a big deal.
Sure.
DC finally joins Comixology Unlimited. They've also expanded their Kindle Unlimited and Amazon Prime reading offerings.
Right.
And as the news bit said, thousands of DC single issues and collections have been added to the service. DC has added several collections and OGNs to Amazon's other as it says, flat rate reading services, Kindle Unlimited and Prime Reading. And so as soon as I heard that news, I seriously considered, Travis, joining Comixology Unlimited. I have not done so since January. But what I did do is I immediately went on, because I'm a Prime member.
Right.
I immediately went on to see what was available through their Prime Reading service, which essentially means I get to read comics, free.
Free. Right. Part of the library.
Right. But unfortunately, now, while it said thousands of DC single issues and collections have been added to the service, only a handful of collections were available for Prime Reading.
Right.
And all of which, I think, except for one, I already have.
Right.
So it's things like I'm trying to think of the titles. All-Star Superman was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The one I did get, I haven't read it yet, is the first volume of 100 Bullets.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, everything else, I'm suddenly blanking on what those things are.
Is that something that they'll slowly trickle more stuff into, or is it kind of a rotating, or?
Well, that's a very good question, because as Damien in the chat says, hey, Damien, Odd with DC Universe just out. So yeah, right. That's kind of why I wanted to talk about this too. Is so they did this deal with Comixology, with Amazon, but at the same time they have their own service, and I have been using that too. I've already been spending the $8 a month on this thing because of the Titans TV show, and now Doom Patrol. We were, and I decided we weren't going to talk about it, but since I'm already talking about it, Travis is a huge Doom Patrol fan, if people don't know.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have access to to the DC Universe service
yet.
Well,
because I don't want to watch it on my computer or my streaming devices, and currently my television isn't set up to be able to just pull that app because they don't offer it everywhere. I mean, like if they would offer it through PlayStation or some of the other options of being able to get it, then I would be all over it immediately. But so I may have to break down and buy a device to stream it through. So,
we'll see. Like I told you, you're more than welcome to come to my house if you want to have a Doom Patrol watching session. Yeah. But I did watch the first episode on Friday. I was actually not feeling all that great, and so I stayed home and watched a bunch of new TV, including Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, and Deadly Class. Yeah. So hitting all the new ones.
Right.
But like I said, so that's I'm already getting it, and then when DC added a bunch of stuff, and we talked about this I think on the last Breaking Late News episode a couple months ago, they had just bombarded us with a bunch of new stuff through their service. So I have been downloading a ton of things, single issue stuff that they have available through the service. And like Damien was suggesting, like you were just asking about, Travis, they do rotate things through on the DC Universe app, and I think that would be the same thing for the Amazon Prime Reading and Comixology. And Damien says, I think Comixology Unlimited tends to rotate which titles are free, often is a way to entice you to buy more things, I guess. That totally makes sense.
Right.
But I've been less than thrilled about the offering so far available for Prime Reading. But I've been, like I said, I downloaded a ton of stuff this last week, including I downloaded the first dozen or so issues of the 2000s. I can't remember what year it came out, Travis. The Manhunter series, the Kate Spencer Manhunter. And I enjoyed that well enough, but I read those first dozen issues, and decided that I wanted to read more.
Right.
And went to download the rest, because I think they have the full run. They had the full run of it on there. And when I went to download issue number 13, it said it's not available on my subscription.
Oh, wow.
Very irritating.
Yeah, right.
but there's some other things now that I've downloaded. I'm looking forward to reading. So at the very least, like I said, Travis does not like digital comics. However, this is a great way if you're interested enough, I guess, to catch up on older things that are available, or maybe even newer things. There's a bunch of they have a whole cross section of new, old stuff available. Sometimes weird things like I know I'm horribly off on a tangent now, but they have one issue of Blue Devil featuring Firestorm.
Interesting.
It's like issue 17 or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's like, why only one issue of Blue Devil? That's just ridiculous. But then they have things, like I said, they have the full run of Manhunter, or did. And I've been reading Suicide Squad, or I downloaded Suicide Squad, the old John Ostrander written one. Right. They have a bunch of, I don't know if they have the full run. I don't think so, but a good collect, like 30 odd issues of that series. So, and that's something I've never read and I have always wanted to. So anyway, for people who are looking to read more comics at a relatively inexpensive price. I mean, if I look at it, what I'm paying $8 a month for this DC Universe service. It sounds like an ad now, right? With the television that I'm able to take in that they're providing, and the per issue or the number of issues that I'm going to read, you break that down per episode or per issue or whatever. We're talking probably pennies. Yeah. To access this stuff. So I'm more than happy to pay that $8 is what I'm saying to get access to this stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, and back to kind of the original question about why are they putting this stuff out there when they have their own universal, thing and whatnot. I just think they realize that they can't put all their eggs in one basket, right? I mean, because not all of us have access to that service. And the stuff that's on, you're paying a monthly flat rate or an annual fee for what you're getting. And they're not getting any more money out of you. They're done getting money out of you, basically. Whereas with the Comixology and that sort of thing, you're looking at, like Damien said, you're looking at, they're offering you some free stuff in hopes that entices you to buy the next, collection of whatever, because you read the first one and liked it, and I want to know what's next. It's not free. I liked it well enough to go buy it. I mean, kind of a thing. To me, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Have some stuff there.
I mean, I realize that there's probably a big segment of the comic book reading community out there who, they want everything for free. It's the digital age, therefore,
Sure. That means it's free. That means it's free. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So these companies exist, they're providing this product.
All right.
They exist to try and make a profit. That's the whole point of what they're trying to do.
Right.
So I don't mind paying a little bit of money for the access that I'm getting. What I don't like, another tangent, sorry, is over the holidays, Comixology had a pretty good sale. Getting collections of comics for just a few bucks. I think the no more than the price of a new comic. $3.99. And so I was getting, 5 or 6 issues in these collections that I got. One of those collections was the first volume. Oh no, this was 10 issues. Never mind. But the first volume of Gotham Central, cool. Which is a comic that I think you have told me in the past was really good. And I've heard from other people how great it is. So I bought that first volume, thinking, if I really like it, I mean, it's written by Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker, right? With, Michael Lark and others on art and Kano and somebody else I'm forgetting. Really good creators, that we know, they're big names today.
Right.
So I got that thinking, well, if I like this, I'll wait for another sale. I'll get another one. And then that's when the dump happened. Shortly after that, that's when DC dumped all this stuff onto their app. And now the whole Gotham Central is available
for free.
Yeah. Free.
Free.
So so now I have to manage, poor Eric has to manage all these digital comics between what I bought on Kindle, what I bought on Comixology.
Wait. One of the sales points of digital comics is it's supposed to be so easy to keep track of all of it because you don't have to have all these long boxes you have to mess with and whatnot.
It is if you only use one service.
Ah.
I unfortunately now have 3 that I'm dealing with. So
nice.
I have to keep track of because I was looking for that first volume of Gotham Central. I'm like, is it Comixology? I look on Comixology. It's not there. Must be Kindle. So, anyway, poor me.
How are you?
All right. Damien also notes if you get Hoopla, and I know Damien has talked about Hoopla, the library service that he has. Travis, do you have Hoopla in your district?
No, we do not.
Neither do I.
Yeah. But I know
I'm always very jealous.
I know lots of people do.
Yeah. It seems like everybody else that we know has access to Hoopla. We don't.
Right.
But as he says, the DC Comics selection seems less impressive. That's interesting that they're doing it that way. That they're DC. I mean, they're kind of dumping stuff here and here and here, but not all the same stuff, and not everything is available. And it's just it's a weird strategy. I don't understand it, but at the same time, it's but we have access to it, so whatever.
Right.
Whatever. Okay. Have I talked enough about this? I didn't mean to go on and on about this particular one, but all right. Unfortunately, as we've been doing these Breaking Late News episodes, it seems like every time we get together, at least one comic creator or cartoonist that we know of or we should know better has passed away. And that is no different here. I actually have a couple, I think only a couple, that I wanted to note. The first one is Ron Smith passed away at the age of 94 or 95. Not sure which one. There was some confusion in the article that I read, but Ron Smith, in case people don't know, and I didn't know this either. Bad me. Ron Smith was the creator of Judge Dredd, or a creator of Judge Dredd.
Right.
So let's see. In the mid 70s, he was started working at 2000 AD, and on what would become, as it says here, his most popular franchise, Judge Dredd.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, Travis, I've read very little Judge Dredd in my years of, now 40 years of reading comics. And I don't know that I've read more than a few issues of 2000 AD, and not necessarily in their entirety.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I remember those books being on the shelves back when we were kids.
Were they at Jerry's shop?
Yeah.
Were they really?
Yeah, they would set off in the far right corner of the shop. Yeah. And I remember, I don't think they were in color. I think they were in black and white, which was the first strike against them in my, teenage brain. Why would I?
Our stupid youth, yeah.
Black and white television. Why would I watch why would I read black and white comic books? And now some of my favorite comic books are black and white. But anyway,
it's like listening to mono audio on the radio.
Yes.
AM.
Right. So it was first radio. What the hell are you talking about?
No, we're showing our age.
Right. But I remember them being there, and I remember looking at them briefly then and going, oh, this is just a giant gore fest. Because you always open it up and it'd be Judge Dredd just blowing somebody's head off or something, whatever. And generally that's not my style of comic, and to some degree it's still not my style of comic, kind of a thing. I know there's more going on in the comic than that. Since then, I have read some to know that it has its own level of social commentary. Just them being what they are is social commentary. But at the age I was at then, that wouldn't have sunk in. But I remember them being there, but it was not anything at the time that would have interested me. So yeah. And
it does not surprise me that you were conscious of that stuff at the shop, because I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is sad. but yeah, I would love to go find some 2000 AD. And one of the themes that the people are gonna notice as we talk through this show is stuff that I've never accessed in 40 years of reading comics.
Right.
That I should have, and I need to correct that in some fashion. So, yeah, I would. I'll have to start looking for some 2000 AD back issues and see if I can find some stuff cheaply. Are they available digitally?
I don't know.
I'm hoping Damien will comment on this because I'm pretty sure he has some 2000 AD or he's talked about it before, right, Damien? I don't know. Let me know. But that's too bad. The older we get, Travis,
Yes.
the more these
right,
things.
as we discussed, these people that were some of them are the epicenter of our youth of getting into reading these books and whatnot are going to be passing.
We're going to be talking about something here in just a few minutes that it breaks my heart. So we'll get to that. Next on the list, unfortunately, cartoonist Bat and Lash, and this again. So I at least had heard of Ron Smith. I may not have understood necessarily his impact as the creator of Judge Dredd. This is a cartoonist Bat and Lash is someone I did not know. He had died at the age of 65 from brain cancer. Was best known, according to the article I saw, for his long-running creator-owned series called Supernatural Law, which I don't know that I've ever heard of that. However, listeners or viewers of the show here, sorry, I'm always in podcast audio only mode here, except when I do these shows with Travis. He worked on licensed materials such as The Simpsons, Tiny Toons, and this I do know of. I never read it, but The Punisher Meets Archie. It was a one-shot from 1994. I remember that making a big splash. So were you familiar at all with Mr. Lash?
No.
And or Supernatural Law?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. I would have to look that up. And as far as the licensed material that he worked on, is all licensed material that I would have basically zero interest in. So that wouldn't be a name that I would have remembered from any of that stuff either. So
yeah. Well, this is a name I know you're familiar with. Next on the list, this is not a report of any deaths, but a change in format for this particular series. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because we've talked before about other books that were ongoing, single issue formats that switched over to an OGN format, and this is one of them. This is Joe Casey and Peter Kowalski's Sex comic. So it will, and it's coming up here pretty soon with Volume 6 called World Hunger, which last I saw comes out on April 24th. Will become an original graphic novel. I have a problem with that term since it's an ongoing series, but that's just me being picky. But anyway, it's now moved to the collection format instead of releasing single issues throughout time.
It's not a trade, so hopefully it's written.
Well, that's true. I am making an assumption here. You're right.
To be a novel. It's been a long time since that book. I collected it for a while. I quit collecting it, but it seems like it's been gone for a very long time. I know the artist has been off doing other things. I really like the artist, so I've read some of the stuff he's done in the in between of the book being gone. But yeah, so is this the first one of these to actually make it to print, or are we going to get oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the title, the Rudka book with Forever in it.
Lazarus.
Are we going to get Lazarus first? What?
See,
I just wonder.
I just pre-ordered it, so probably
because all the other ones that we've talked about, it was they are going to this, but we haven't actually seen it.
Yeah, I think the Lazarus, it's called Lazarus Risen, which is, yeah, like you said, it's that format too. Like I said, I just pre-ordered it, so it's either coming out in April or May.
Yeah,
pretty sure it's May.
So this is probably the first one, because that I'm aware of that's gone from, being a monthly to being a.
Yeah, which is funny though, because it's the last one that I found out about.
Right. Well, I don't know. There's lots of conversation about that comic anyway.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That was the first time I'd heard anything about sex. Sorry. The comic book sex.
Yeah.
In a very long time. Actually,
right.
When I saw that, I wondered, because I know, I got the first arc of that book,
mm-hmm.
and I know you were reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you if you were still reading that book.
No, I absolutely hate the lettering in that book. So,
that
ultimately that's why I quit getting the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the lettering,
right? Well, because that's the book that that just random words would be colored differently.
Oh, that's right.
Yellow and green and red, and I could never find a rhyme or reason for it. The creators would never comment on why it was. I mean, I even went through the damn book and okay, all the color, trying to match up the colored text. Does it mean something in and of itself? It annoyed me so much that it punched the right buttons. I guess I'm nope. I'm not.
We're done.
I'm done. Love the art, but no.
Well, it was an interesting story as well. The premise of it was interesting, I thought, but yeah, it was. Joe Casey, he does some interesting things, that's for sure.
Right. But that was infuriating.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting that, like you said, this is probably the first one that will actually come out, because we've talked about probably a good half dozen now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, or close to that.
Right. Some image titles and not just image titles. I mean, some Vertigo books are going that direction too. So yeah, it'll be, I'm not excited by it, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to get the stuff I'm still interested in. Yeah, I'm going to keep getting Lazarus, but I'm not real happy with the format. So.
Oh, really? So you don't like this idea of going to since you brought up Lazarus, so that will be a quarterly release schedule where you get, and it's not quite a like what we think of as a collection of.
It's 44 pages plus 20 pages of back matter.
It's more like 2 issues plus extra stuff.
Right.
So that's a little different than perhaps what Sex and some of the other ones, Motor Crush, and I forget what others.
Right. Astro City is for Vertigo.
Astro City, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So, like anything that's bound like a trade, always have a concern art-wise, gutter loss and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, whereas a floppy, you can't beat a single issue. Because a single issue, I can lay it out flat every single page. I see the whole thing. So there's all of that. So if they're going to, like in the case of Lazarus, if it's going quarterly and they just make it a big, still stapled like Headlopper is, then I'll be happy, because Headlopper comes out quarterly. It acts like a single issue book, because it just continues the story. It's not like there's any weird gap. It's not trying to write it as a novel. But it comes out quarterly. You get this huge, you get, 3 or 4 issues worth in that, but it's just a big, thick, heavily stapled book. Then I'm okay. That's cool. I'm hoping that Lazarus is that way too. I'm suspect it's not. I'm suspect it's going to be a thin, square bound book that you can't open all the way without breaking it.
For some reason, square bound is ringing in the back of my head in relation to Lazarus, but I could be wrong about that.
Right, so it's going to be the prestige format, which to me I don't like that. Unless it's sitting on my bookshelf. I guess if it's sitting on my bookshelf, if I'm putting it on a bookshelf, then that square bound is good. But otherwise, no, it's not. And I don't got that kind of bookshelf space. So
I will say the prestige format is better as far as gutter space that you're talking about, in as compared to like 100-page square bound comic.
Right.
It's
right.
only slightly better,
Yeah.
but better.
Yeah. So that's
And
yeah.
Damien says, I've come to hate those square bound books.
Yep. For the same reason. I mean, that's
Yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah.
that gutter losses.
I hate that. I really hate that.
So
you know where you don't get gutter loss, Travis?
Digital comics? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's because you don't have gutters. At any rate. So yeah, I mean, because you get that full page spread or whatever, it just becomes a disaster.
Oh yeah. It's horrible. I don't know why they do that.
Yeah. It's cheap.
There are ways around this in the publishing world, but not conducive to what we tend to think of as comic book pages, comic book paper.
Mm.
So anyway,
yeah,
it's not my problem to solve.
Exactly.
Okay. Next up here, more DC Comics news. Ooh, I got a lot of this. Yikes! This whole page is DC Comics. I guess that's what happens when you actually release news. So DC, well, we talked about the DC Comics expanding into or providing more digital material. Mm-hmm. They're also adding to its publishing partnership with Walmart, increasing the number of 100-page giant comics from 4 to 6. And there's actually some other news that we'll get back to on this
mm-hmm.
That I want to end with in the show. But so I'm curious if what we're about to talk about is impacted by the thing that's coming up later. But they talked about a new Swamp Thing and Flash title will be added, and the Justice League of America and Teen Titans books will be rebranded and renumbered. Love that renumbering. But at least the JLA book will become a Wonder Woman book. And the Titans, the Teen Titans will be replaced by just Titans.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I'm pleased that Wonder Woman, because we have a Batman and we have a Superman. Wonder Woman should be there as she's the part of the Trinity. So I feel like that that's something that they need to do.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and not only just I don't know. For me, they should really try to expand the Wonder Woman line. I mean, we have 2 Superman books, 2 Batman books, and then all the other related titles for both of those characters, mostly Batman books. What does Wonder Woman have? She has her own title.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bunch more characters, a bunch more story opportunities that they could explore with that character. It's just, they have all of Greek mythology to play with.
Right.
And what do? They have one book.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But and then the Titans, I guess that makes sense. We got Titans on the DC app, and I have this huge love for Teen Titans, generally speaking. So I'm all for that. However, what I thought was weird about this, Travis, was that the Sideways character
mm-hmm.
from the New Age of Heroes books
mm-hmm.
that I read, I got the 13-issue run plus the annual of that book.
Uh-huh.
I should not have gotten that many, but I really shouldn't have. But I was hoping for some improvements. But they're reprinting that in this Titans book.
Sure. This
character has no association with the Titans. I understand. They're just trying to.
They need a filler.
Sure,
and that's cheap filler.
Out of what? When did the Titans come out? 1960 something, 64, 60. I don't remember. All that time they can't fill in stuff with actual Titans material.
That stuff's all dated though.
Oh, come on.
Really dated. This is modern. This is modern storytelling.
This is a modern canceled comic book. Why would they want to promote this?
Exactly.
So unless they have other plans for this character, I suppose.
Oh Lord.
Wait, did you read Sideways?
Enough. I read a couple issues, and that was enough for me.
So you were the smarter person. It wasn't that bad.
Okay.
much.
Uh,
It had promise. That's why I kept with it. That and the promise of Grant Morrison popping in and doing some stuff, and it was only that annual.
right.
Anyway, that's my fault. Okay, moving on. So not only is DC doing the Walmart books,
hmm
they're also expanding to other retailers. What? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I remember that's part of the end thing about this. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're branching out to Target. You know, you got Walmart, now you got Target. But at least right now they're doing this weird thing. But it's a 100-page giant, just like the other ones at Walmart. But this is it's promoting the DC Primal Age Funko toy line.
Right. That's no weird than them selling Hostess cupcakes or Twinkies or fruit pies back in the day. And that's what it is. This is just an advanced version of them using the brand to sell something else, basically, right?
Is this the 21st century equivalent of DC Superpowers?
Yeah.
Or
It
if I'm
is.
gonna cross the road to Marvel Secret Wars.
I think it is. I mean, that's clearly what it is. It's there to promote another product.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's a weird thing to me. I'll read the description here. This 100-page one-shot is rooted in the sword and sorcery genre and creates a barbarian mythos behind the Funko action figures, presenting glimpses into the reimagined backstories and superpowers of the Trinity and other iconic DC characters. Sword and sorcery genre, barbarian mythos, Travis. But hey, if it gets young people interested in the characters and whatnot, I'm all for it. I'm really just kind of taking the piss out of this news, but
Right. Because it's not your thing, but
yeah. It just seems like a weird meshing of stuff.
yeah, I guess
It's like the now that I brought it up on air and I can't think of what it is. There were some DC animated movies that came out a few years ago that were really to promote a toy line.
right.
Unlike the other DC animated movies where they're just pushing the back catalog, they're adapting the comic book stories to an animated movie format. This was very clearly DC Monster. There was Monster Mayhem, I think, is one title. I might be messing that up, but you would get these weird. Batman would have these. He had this weird bat symbol on his chest, and motorcycles and mechanical monsters, and it's a toy line that they were promoting with this movie.
Right.
So this is very much the same thing. I get that. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But so Walmart, Target. Who's next? Who's a big retailer like them? They've all died away.
Yeah. I don't know. So I haven't gotten any of that stuff. I haven't gone to look at any of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've looked at them. They're right at the at my Walmart. They're right at the checkout area that my wife and I normally go to. And so I constantly am eyeing it, and they're always full. So I don't know if we talked about this before, Travis, when we talked about the Walmart stuff, but
Right.
there's this
Little box.
little cardboard bin that fits two of the comics side by side, and it's only about yay wide. And I think they can fit whatever the equivalent of that many books in each slot. But they're always there. And I always see new ones. I don't know, as the new ones come out, I always see them. I don't know if they're actually taking stuff out and putting up the new ones. No, they're not. I know they're not, because I kind of look at the spines just to kind of see what's there. And I see older issues. but no number ones. None of the number ones are there. Like the first
Sure,
wave of
sure.
the books, they're not there. But what I'm trying to get to is I don't know how to gauge in my area, my little sleepy college town, what the response is to that.
Right.
Maybe I should go talk to someone at my local Walmart and get them on air to talk about this stuff.
They wouldn't tell you anything.
They wouldn't.
Sure.
I know. Yeah. Who buys these things? Because the other thing, tangent. The other thing is where they're located.
Top shelf.
Top shelf.
Right.
Where if you are a 10-year-old, 12-year-old person, well, maybe you could maybe reach them, but if you're younger, there's no way. There's no way you can without maybe causing them to fall on you. There's no way to actually get to that stuff. So
right.
What the heck? Why? I don't get that. Unless they want to have
Walmart.
the parents as the gatekeepers.
That's Walmart's failing, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like, what are they doing? Do they not understand how they should get this in the hands of younger readers, which is I thought was the whole point. Anyway. Damien rightly points out that there are probably more speculators going to his Walmart. I don't think that's happening at mine, but I know that is going on. I know that a lot of people, when this first started coming out, they went to their Walmart and could not find any of these number one books because people went and snatched them up and then tried to resell them or have resold them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand that, except obviously making a buck. But all right. Next up, this is a good thing. This is a good thing DC's doing. I think DC has launched it's called the Be a Hero, Read a Book campaign, which will promote reading by providing graphic novels and other materials featuring art from upcoming DC Zoom. That's where I went the Cooming part, or got the Cooming part, and DC Ink titles starting at this is from the American Library Association's Midwinter Conference that happened in Seattle in January.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. It says here the campaign will also be a key component, quote unquote, of Booklist's first annual Graphic Novels in Libraries Month, which is coming up in July. And this is a month-long program which promotes reading through events centered on comic books and graphic novels.
Mm.
So go to your local library in July and I participate in this. This is a wonderful thing.
See, even the library is saying that comics are reading. So,
have you gone to your local library recently? Did they have what's their graphic
novel
novel selection?
They don't have any graphic novels.
None,
because they are stolen every time they get them.
Oh,
so they quit
really?
So they quit getting them. They quit getting them because they got tired of getting them and then having to replace them. And yeah.
Well,
my family used to volunteer at the library, so we had kind of the inside story on that. No, of course I was giving them a hard time about the fact that everybody else's library has comic books. How come ours doesn't? And that was why. It was because they would love to have them, but every time they get them, someone does not bring them back, or they put them down their coat and walk out the door and they're never seen again. I can go to my local library and get a fishing pole and go fishing, but I cannot read a comic at my local home.
Oh, my Lord.
Yep.
I was going to make a knock at your town,
Yeah.
Because I have to, it's obligatory considering where we used to live.
Sure.
But I will refrain from actually making the comment. My local library, even though it doesn't have Hoopla, my biggest complaint, does have. I recently discovered a pretty good selection of traded comics or graphic novels. Mm-hmm. Not as big as I would like. I'm actually going to be donating a bunch of my trades and trades. I was going to say OGNs, but I don't know that I'm actually giving them an OGN. As I define what an OGN is.
Right.
But I'm going to donate probably about 30 or so books here soon.
Huh? Wow.
Maybe some more. I got to go through. I'm running out of room, which is why I'm doing this. Running out of room, and also, it's stuff that I bought and I read it. But it's not something that I care to keep around, and so I'm hoping that some other person who's interested will pick this up and want to read it. If they want to take it home, whatever. But you shouldn't do that, kids. Take your library books back.
Exactly.
So other people can enjoy them.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was pretty impressed. They have a huge, I don't remember which one it, maybe in Infinite Crisis. I always do that. A huge hardbound library edition of the book. Wonderful looking collection. But so I got to go back. I recently renewed my library card so I could check out. I was actually using it to check out audiobooks. But then it wouldn't work for me. So I had to go in and because they apparently, if you don't actively use it, and I was just getting an audiobook here and there. They stop your, or they inactivate
they take your privileges, huh?
Yeah. So I have to re-up essentially, but it was very easy. Anyway, so. But this is a cool thing that the DC is helping to promote. Sure. Again, it goes back to what they're doing with Walmart and Target and the digital side of things. They're just trying to get their product in front of as many different eyes as they can, which that makes a whole lot of sense. Being a publishing company, as they are, so and anything to promote reading. Madison, my granddaughter Madison. Has gotten into a bit of warm water, not hot water, but warm water, because she, for her extra reading that she does in class, she always wants to read a graphic novel, as they call it. What's the big thing? Well, she's read Smile, Raina Telgemeier's books. There's some other things. I can't remember which one it is now, but. I'm blanking on the thing, but she always wanted to read those, and her teacher's trying to encourage her to read prose books at her level,
right?
And some of the things that she was reading was probably not really her level. Now, of course, I'm conflicted about this because I'm not going to tell her don't read comics. That's ridiculous,
right? Exactly.
But she also needs to broaden her horizons and read things that may challenge her a little more linguistically,
right?
Than I'm not saying that that comics can't do that, folks. Don't send your hate mail to me. But she needs to read some other things too. But no way am I going to discourage her from reading comic books. So anyway. Moving on here. This is non-DC. Thankfully. Did you know Ralph Reese and National Lampoon?
No.
And Byron Price?
I mean, no. I mean, I'm familiar with the work, but not to put a name to it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I've read some National Lampoon stuff in years past. Not a whole lot. But this is the artist Ralph Reese and late writer Byron Price. Their National Lampoon comic strip 1 Year Affair will be collected. This is the strip which ran monthly in National Lampoon from 1973 to 1975, a little before my time in terms of what I was reading.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't reading National Lampoon at that age, but
no.
This 1 Year Affair was as it says here, a darkly comedic story about two people's romantic relationship as it goes from budding to flourishing, faltering to reviving, and then ending. I just thought, and I saw a bit of the preview pages or preview for the collection. I saw some of the work in the article that I read. It looks pretty good. It looks like something that I would very much be interested in reading. So I'm going to be looking out for that book when it's published.
Right.
What did you like about National Lampoon? The stuff that you read.
Well, obviously
Do you remember?
Obviously I didn't. I wasn't a huge fan because I didn't keep trying to find the stuff to read it. I don't even know how I came. I mean, it's kind of those random find kind of things. I think it was yard sale buys is where some of that stuff came from, and it must have not been very impressive because I own most of my yard sale buys that are anything related to that kind of thing. So I don't know where those would have went to. I don't know if those were acquired by my parents after I had purchased them or what. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about them. I don't remember them being, so I may have thrown them away or something. I don't know. Buy it without really thinking about what it was. And then after getting it, not being interested in what it was. But that would have been stuff that it would have been old stuff. I mean, I would have been really young.
Yeah.
I know when I bought that stuff, but yeah.
I think I remember reading the magazines in, there was a particular store in town, in the north part of town.
Mm-hmm.
That store is no longer there, but they had a magazine rack,
right?
And they also had comics there. So they just threw all this stuff on the shelves, and I would go in. I don't remember if you and I ever went there together.
I think so.
So this is before you and I started hanging out, but I would just go through and I would just do through the many different
right
comics that were there, and there were no order to it whatsoever. But I also would pick up some of the magazine. I think I remember reading some National Lampoon stuff. We would just hang out at the magazine rack.
Right.
Me, my brother, Greg was there too.
Yeah.
And we would just sit there and read stuff until we got the stink eye from the person that worked at the store, and we had to hightail it out of there because we weren't buying anything.
Right.
So, all right. Yeah. But anyway, if that sounds interesting, 1 Year Affair, people should look out for that. This is go from something interesting to something sad. This is what I was referring to earlier. George Perez announced his retirement from comic book work and private commissions.
I don't know if that's sad, though.
Well,
I want to retire. I don't want my retirement to be sad. So.
Well, it's sad in that, because this is why, and I don't mean to suggest that Perez shouldn't be retiring or anything, because he's long had some issues with his eyes and
right.
And but he was such a huge impact on my early comic book reading experiences.
100%.
To the point where he's a big reason why I fell in love with the New Teen Titans to begin with, and they remain one of my most favorite superhero groups ever, along with the Legion of Superheroes. And he did do a few covers for the Legion, so there's that connection for me. I would redraw his work. I wouldn't trace it, but I would redraw it. So I was trying to develop my own. Well, I was doing my own art, but I was emulating him. So he was a huge influence in that way too. I love his art to this day. It's sad in that I don't get more George Perez stuff, in a regular basis, and it's sad because. I was going to ask you this, Travis, because I can't remember. I've never been able to meet George Perez. He is one of those comic book creators, one of those artists that people always talk about. If you have the opportunity to go to a con, go to these people whose work you have enjoyed. I've said this many times myself on the show, and thank them for their work, for their art. And I've always wanted to do that with him. And I is unlikely that I will get that opportunity to do so.
Right.
Have you met the great George Perez?
Yeah, I have a Wonder Woman sketch from him.
Yeah.
That I got and sat there. I got that and sat there and talked with him while he was doing it and whatnot, and it was awesome. He was a sweetheart of a guy. Was really, really cool and really, really nice to everybody that was there. Yeah. Yeah. So
I really
yeah,
hate you.
thankfully for me, that is one of those people that I got to talk to before something horrible happened or or whatever and whatnot. So I mean, I'm happy we're here getting to talk about him, and it's not because it's an obituary version.
Of course.
Of getting to talk about the guy and whatnot. Hugely influential. I think that anybody who is a young producer of superhero comics anyway, I don't know how that the guy didn't influence them. I mean, basically Jeff Johns and younger generation of superhero comic book people. I just don't see how he's not, a major influence and whatnot. For the longest time, he was 100% the gold standard for what a superhero comic should look like. Everything else was less than. And I've moved past that to accept there's other versions of art and whatnot, but that's still in my head to some degree. I mean, I don't. That's the Titans. I mean, I don't envision anything else as being the Titans other than that. Everybody does Starfire's hair wrong, except for him. I mean, there's this stuff that is the density of his pages, for instance. It's not just a matter of putting a character on the page. The density of the page is all the stuff that is in the page. There aren't a lot of artists, quite frankly, who really do that. And so kudos to any of those artists that were putting out a monthly book without issues, without delays, without fill-in artists, without whatever, and putting out the density that people like him put out is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I agree. It's sad that the chances of getting to talk to him again or getting to meet him someplace are a lot slimmer now. And if it ultimately is him being forced into retirement because he can't do it anymore, but he really wants to, that's a bummer. Anytime you hear about any of these great artists that start losing their eyesight or their hands don't work anymore, that keeps them from the art that they still desire to do, that, that's a bummer in that sense. But I'm hoping that he is in a position and in a place that he can be happy in the retirement and do stuff with his wife. And
mm-hmm. Well, and it's not that he's not going to be doing any art. He said that he'll still create art. However, his public appearances will be limited to, or his public offerings of his art will be limited to convention sketches, for which the proceeds will go to charity.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that he will only be doing a few convention appearances. I think this year he's doing 3 or 4.
Chicago. He's in Chicago, right?
I believe that's
him
correct,
him and Marv are both. I've got a comic laying around here somewhere that I know had the ads in it. Now, let me see if I can find one of it.
You're talking about C2E2?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's going to be in Chicago. Is that Chicago?
I think if that's the case, Travis, I need to make a quick trip just to see Misters Wolfman and Perez.
Yeah, March 22nd to 24th, C2E2.
Oh, dang it.
They are both there.
Dang it.
Yeah. And I have met both of them, not at the same time, but I have met both of them. So
see, and I haven't even talked to Marv Wolfman either.
And that blew my see George Perez's line when I was in Vegas, at one of the Vegas cons, and he was there, and there was a massive line, of people there. Marv Wolfman blew my mind because he was at Emerald City Comic Con, and anytime I went by his table, there was nobody there. There was nobody talking to him. I'm like, how can this guy's table not just be this, line out the door kind of a thing? So much stuff that they've written and whatnot. So, yeah,
that's funny because it had to have been one of the Emerald City Comic Cons that I attended as well, and every time I went by his table, he wasn't there.
Oh, weird.
However, the Sunday morning, the last day of it wasn't the Sunday. It was the Monday morning, because my wife and I would always stay the next day and drive back.
Right.
we were in the convention hotel's restaurant
Mhm.
and having breakfast before we headed out. And who's sitting across from us and one table up, but Mr. Wolfman and somebody else that I did not recognize. And I'm like, I'm my eyes are darting over to him every few seconds. And Kitcher's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, that's Marv Wolfman. And she's like, well, go say hi. I'm like, no, he's eating breakfast. I'm
Or eating breakfast, exactly.
not going to bug him.
Right.
So I had my opportunity and I blew it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, like I said, Perez is just, he's such a looming figure in my mind when it comes to comic book artists. And like I said, if I ever have an opportunity to actually talk to him and thank him, I will take that opportunity. So I just hope I get that opportunity at some point.
Right.
But I won't be able to make it to C2E2 this year. That's too soon.
Yeah.
I should have. I did not know that. I guess I need to pay more attention to these ads that are in the back of the comics.
Well, I think it was like just this month the ads are coming out. So
Really?
Yeah, which is way too late. If you're for anybody who hasn't ever been to a con, you have to have planned way before this stuff.
I know, that's ridiculous, right?
Tickets are probably gone, so I don't know what's the point. So
yeah. Okay, let's go to some Marvel news. The Oscars just happened. Last week at the time of this recording? Last weekend?
Yep.
And of course, when I put this bit of news on here, it was to announce that Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture.
Right, which is big.
But now we get to talk about how it lost. It did not win Best Picture, but it won some other awards.
Right.
But it's the
best. What else?
Yeah.
Was it score? No, I don't remember what else it was, but it was best costume, I know for sure. And there was one other. Yeah.
But it's the first comic book film, whatever that means.
Yeah.
To be nominated for Best Picture. And while it did not win, I was very pleased about this. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Exactly. Well, when I heard that, then I was hard pressed to even think of what other animated series what animated shows even came out last year by comparison. So, yeah. Good stuff.
So I don't know that Black Panther actually deserved to be nominated for an Oscar, and maybe I'm gonna just get some ire like responses from that. But
it depends on what your definition of what is the best film. What is the criteria? Yeah,
and this is all just my personal opinion about sure. what is an Oscar worthy nominated film. We just as an example, has nothing to do with comics, but Kidra and I just last night watched Bohemian Rhapsody.
Uh-huh.
And while I quite enjoyed it because I'm a Queen fan, and I enjoyed the examination of the band's ascent and what they went through, and especially Freddie Mercury, Oscar worthy? I don't know.
Right.
So anyway, I was just tickled pink that a superhero film was nominated for an Oscar, and then the fantastic Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse actually won an Oscar. So
won an Oscar, and it's so heavily based on comic material. Not just comic book characters. I mean, the whole Spider-Verse, and that's a kind of a current kind of a theme of stuff that they've been working on the last couple of years at Marvel. So to have all that stuff, Miles Morales is in the grand scheme of things, an extremely new character. As far as when you talk about Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, that sort of stuff, he's such a new thing. For it to get all this, I think is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I heard just recently that the Blu-ray release of that movie contains like 90 minutes more of material.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And
all movie's worth of stuff.
Yeah. It's like almost doubles the length of the movie. And now it's not completed animation necessarily.
Right.
But it just, there's a lot of stuff they cut out. and so it is like watching an entirely different movie. So I've heard. I can't wait to. I'm definitely buying that.
Yeah.
You know, I won't be buying Black Panther, but I will be buying Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
So, all right, I think that's. I'm gonna skip that last thing for January, Travis, because I already kind of talked about it in relation to the stuff available on the DC Universe, the comics available on the DC Universe app. So let's go to February's news, and we'll start off with DC's Year of the Villain. So this is. They're starting off with a 25-cent one shot. So this is their big push for the year in terms of like an event type thing, I guess. So it's a 25-cent one shot with stories about villains tying into upcoming Batman, Justice League, and Superman titles. Now, this just might be the fact that we are longtime readers, Travis, but this feels very familiar.
Sure.
And I know Travis is not an event comics person.
Right. I am really against them, and more so all the time. So
yeah, I know. I think I'm finally starting to agree with you more. But I mean, so this is the reason I say it sounds familiar is I remember the Faces of Evil month that they did. This is back in 2009.
I actually like the Faces of Evil. So,
but that wasn't an event. That was like a. I mean, in a way, but it wasn't a traditional event where it's like they start off with, here's your bookend thing.
It was a whatever title you were reading, one issue focused on a core villain of that whatever book that was, and then you went back to whatever was going on. It wasn't its own thing, right? This is its own thing, right? I mean, it's separate from, it's going to interrupt or screw with, in my mind, with some of those ongoing titles, but it's separately its own kind of thing. So it's closer to the New 52 lenticular cover disaster, or you loved it, because we needed more Joker's Daughter comics out there.
Especially the New 52 Joker's Daughter.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but it's closer to that, right?
Yeah. So exactly. So it's like they took this singular instance for like I said, the Faces of Evil thing, like in the New 52 thing, where they expanded that a little bit, right? Where they had sometimes upwards of 3-point issues.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember some of those.
It was like issue 23.1, issue 22. Yeah.
Exactly. So now they've, and so
I skipped the entire month of DC Comics. That's
right. I remember that.
Yep.
And I basically skipped the lenticular covers. I just got the regular covers of some of those things. But this is 10 years ago they did Faces of Evil, and then when did the New 52 stuff come out? 2012, 13?
5 years ago or so. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, again, I don't know. I just, one, it seems very familiar because of these things that we're talking about. And then two, it's like, why do we need to celebrate the villains?
Well, see, now you say that, but the argument is the best superhero comic books have the best villains in them.
Yes. I do not disagree with that point.
So that's why.
I just don't agree that we should be celebrating them. They're villains. I know I'm taking a very black and white view of superheroes and their villains. Right?
I mean, I get why we do it because, like I said, you got to have a good villain. If you don't have a good villain, then
of course,
what is the superhero playing against? And quite frankly, sometimes the villains are way more interesting than in some sense than the heroes are. I don't have a I don't have a problem with it, other than it being an event book and it disrupting something else that's going on that I might be reading. That's my only, but that's my beef of event books in general, or crossovers in general. They need to be somehow organically make sense to whatever it is that's going on in the title proper, instead of blowing up whatever plot or storyline that is going on they have a hard enough time in some of those books keeping things together, and then to have this kind of stuff disrupting it is not good in my opinion.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, every 5 years or so, having a party where they focus on that stuff, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right.
Chances are I'm avoiding the whole thing,
Yeah.
until I see it in actuality what it might be. I'll get the 25-cent book because probably that comes to us just about free. So they're just got comic book service. So I'll get that just to see what that is or whatnot. But the second when you make this when you make it in an event, and if you're trying to tie all these villains together, I don't see how you can do it. I don't see how you can do it because there's way too many of those villains are not going to play nice with each other. It doesn't make sense.
Well, now, are you reading Snyder's Justice League book?
Yes.
Now, isn't there a big focus on the Legion of Doom or something in that book?
Every five issues, the Legion of Doom is the focus of the book. I just last night was talking about the Legion of Doom issue kind of thing, and the villains are trying to eat each other in that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are playing nice conveniently for right now because it suits their purpose, but I can't imagine anybody ever having the Joker on their team for any reason whatsoever. No, that character just does not make any kind of sense. Why anyone, for any reason, there's no logistic reason to have that nutball on your team other than to get him out of the way. There is no, signing up Gorilla Grodd and Lex Luthor and Brainiac. And yeah, those people all make sense. Them all getting along for a brief period of time to meet some need. But we start looking at the psychology of some of these villains. Makes no sense. So
for what's going on there, though, in the Justice League book, are you seeing a build up from in that book to what this Year of the Villain might be? Possibly.
That's one of the reasons why I dropped the book. Because I've dropped it because it feels like an event is rumbling somewhere. It just has this, and maybe that's just the way Snyder writes. And I've kind of gotten used to not reading Snyder, and I've gone back to reading Snyder. Because I quit reading Snyder after he left Batman. I didn't read any of the metal stuff or any of that kind of stuff. And the Justice League book just feels like it's constantly flirting with some big something that's going to mess up a bunch of stuff that I'm not interested in. So I've dropped the book, kind of for that reason. But yeah, I can see it easy. I can see them because they're flirting with this giant, multi-universal potential destruction or rewriting of everything plot line going on in that. So clearly that's something that would bring a bunch of villains together for them to have the potential to be in control of that, obviously, as opposed to the good guys. So I can see it. I don't know. Probably.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting for me if because I'm starting to skip things like that interrupt the flow of whatever, like the Tom King's Batman. I skipped the Josh Williamson interlude.
Good call.
The crossover with Flash. I didn't get those 2 issues of Batman, so I'm curious if I'm going to do something similar with what this is.
Yeah.
Anyway. We have talked before about this book. This is the former Vertigo book, Second Coming. Mm-hmm. And I think I've talked a little bit about it on the last previews episode with George as well. But this is the book where Jesus comes back and teams up with a Superman-like character. And we had 2 issues in previews that you could pre-order.
I had 2 issues ordered. Yeah.
Right. And I was waiting for the trade because it sounded like a really interesting story. But since then, DC had canceled it, and Mark Russell, the writer Mark Russell, went on Twitter and basically said that, things are all good. It wasn't, don't blame DC. But I found it interesting because I wanted to bring it up because now while it's been canceled at Vertigo, it's looking for a new place. I hope that they can find a publisher that will be a little more responsive to publishing this. But the article at Newsarama, and this is why I want to bring this up, suggested that the cancellation came about because of an online petition that called the comic, quote, inappropriate and blasphemous, unquote.
Blasphemy.
And I went to that petition and read through the description just because I was curious. Obviously, I don't agree with it. I thought it was, given Mark Russell's track record.
Yeah, but those same people would think that some of his other books are blasphemous too.
I'm sure, but he does social commentary so well.
Exactly.
I would have expected nothing less of this book. I just thought it was curious. If that's the case, now, like I said, that article suggested this. However, Mark himself stated that there were editorial changes happening prior to that petition, plus with the attention that petition garnered, that contributed to the decision.
I'm curious about because I hadn't heard the editor part until you had sent me the link to this. I'm curious about that aspect of it. So was something going on that he wasn't comfortable with anyway, and then the petition's kind of the out? I was impressed that they let him walk away with it and keep it. Because he probably, in some sense, had already signed the right, the first media rights, because with Vertigo, typically, unless they've changed something, it's a creator-owned book, but you give up until a period of time, until nothing's used or whatever, you give up the rights to media act, any other media rights that go on to, like if somebody wants to produce a TV show, a movie, whatever, the publisher has the rights to all of that and stuff. So it kind of has to go out of print and not be used before you're going to see any more, go on with it and whatnot. And clearly those contracts aren't to everybody's liking, just because we know there is a second story of Sheriff of Babylon, but the creators are not going to produce it until they have the rights back. So I'm told there is a full script for that book, and that they're not going to do it until they have their rights back. So I don't know, but I thought that was cool that he gets everything back and can now shop at some places he went to, and I certainly hope he does. To me, 200,000 people signed a petition saying, "Ooh, that's free advertising." I don't get it, because to me that would be awesome. Because I also saw when this whole thing all happened and whatnot, I follow Sean Murphy, the artist writer, on Twitter, and he was like, "Man, I tried everything I could when I put out Punk Rock Jesus to get people pissed off about it." I mean, he sent copies of it and news ads to the Million Mom March and whatnot, trying to get somebody excited and pissed off, because he knew that was going to be advertising. Controversy is advertising. So that surprises me. But I'm really curious about the editorial part of it. Who was somebody telling him he needed to do something different, or he shouldn't address something in some way or whatever?
Yeah,
I'm really curious.
I imagine that, because DC's long had, they've long backed away from religious themes. I mean, there's the famous Swamp Thing story that I think
Punk Rock Jesus came out from Vertigo.
Well, that's true, but I mean, there is a track record there of DC kind of shying away from that kind of stuff. But because I think the story in Swamp Thing that Alan Moore was doing, that they put the kibosh on, I think that helped contribute to him leaving the company or leaving the book. I can't remember the details now, and maybe I'm mixing stuff in my head. But new person in the chat, Robotters 100, notes that DC as a publisher never backed down from religious themes.
I think there's both. We can find ones where seems like they have and ones where they haven't.
Yeah, my recollection is that they tend to shy away from. Well, they want to shy away from controversy revolving religious themes.
Punk Rock Jesus, they literally scrape Jesus cells off the
Sure.
shot a turd and clone Jesus. So
I think maybe it has to do with who's running the show at that point. And so at that, when Punk Rock,
I'm almost positive that would have been like Bond, and I'll have to look. But I think Doyle was somewhere in as an editor at some level on that book too, and now he's the head of Vertigo again.
Mm-hmm.
Or is this because of the new higher powers that erase Batman?
Well, yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking, is that there's probably some pressure from above to avoid that kind of material, perhaps.
It's off-brand.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that you and I have talked about this over text message or Twitter or whatever, but yeah, it's potential. There are some potential changes that could come out of this DC management shuffle that's been going on that could adversely affect, I'll just say, creativity.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about another thing later on, just a kind of a bullet point on somebody else's thing that my interpretation of that freaks me out too. So anyway, we'll get to that one.
As Damien points out, DC is now AT&T. So
or is it actually, are they actually AT&T, or has that officially gone?
I think that's true. I think that deal has gone through. So
and we thought it was bad when Warner Brother bought DC.
I know, right? Of course.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, they've been a Warner Brothers property for a long time now.
I remember us as kids thinking that was going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Turner's going to own. No. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, like I said, I hope that we hope that Mark Russell and I forget the artist's name, but I hope they find a home for this book because next time it's solicited, I will pre-order it this time. I'm not going to wait for the trade. I want to see this story.
Yeah, I'm here.
So
same here.
Okay. Here's a good thing. We talked about this before, the Dwayne McDuffie Awards. I think we talked about the nominees, or maybe I'm thinking of a different awards thing. But anyway, this the winner for the 5th annual Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics has been named. Just to remind people, the Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics started in 2014. It's an award that spotlights the best underrepresented voices in comics and comic books that are striving to craft a wider diversity of creations. The nominees were Papa Cherry, written by Saxton Moore and illustrated by Philip Johnson. The Snagglepuss Chronicles, written by Mark Russell, and penciled by Mike Feehan. Archival Quality, written by Ivy Noel Ware and illustrated by Christina Stewart. Victor Laval's Destroyer, written by Victor Laval and illustrated by Dietrich Smith. The Carpet Merchant by Ramena Yee. And the winner is Archival Quality. So this is where I'm going to show my comic book ignorance. I did not know about any of these except for the Snagglepuss Chronicles because that was put out by DC.
So I read the Snagglepuss Chronicles and I also read Victor Laval's Destroyer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of a take on Frankenstein. I mean, Frankenstein's monster is actually in it. It's kind of a story of these cutting edge scientists who have a son, and the son is walking home. They're African American, walking home one day and gets shot up by the police basically, and they reanimate him, kind of a thing. So it was good. I enjoyed it. And this is one of those, looking at awards, shows or programs or whatever, to kind of look to see what's out there that maybe I missed or whatever. And should I be reading this? And some of the awards things, a popularity contest. So it's kind of like you're looking at what other people think are whatever. I always love this list of stuff because the stuff I've missed, which these other things I've clearly missed, and I clearly missed the winner on this, but I want to go hunt them down just because that's other voices giving me other stories in ways that I haven't that I haven't seen, and that's what I'm interested in these days. It's so easy to come across the run of the mill standard, superhero stuff that's out there and whatnot. I want to see something that's different. So I'll be more than likely hunting down to pick up this other stuff on the list and whatnot.
So Archival Quality, in case people are interested and they want to go pick this up, it was published by Oni Press last year. The story is about Kel Walden, or is that Sel Walden? Kel Walden, who in her new job as a museum archivist discovers the ghost of a young woman, and the ghost discovers her. That sounds like an interesting story.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of surprised I missed that. I don't remember that at all. And typically I look closely at what Oni Press is putting out because I like them as a publisher. So
I want to say that I vaguely recall seeing it, but I didn't think enough of the solicitation that Oni put out to actually show any interest in it. But obviously some other more learned peoples out there did notice, and so now it is the winner of that award. So congratulations to Ivy Noel Ware and Christina Stewart for that.
For sure.
So Travis, I think this is something that I put on here because I think you said something on Twitter about it.
Yeah.
DC is going finally, after decades, is finally going to put out a Lois Lane comic book and a Jimmy Olsen book.
Yeah. So my Twitter comment was, explicitive. I'm actually going to buy a Jimmy Olsen comic book.
Well, it's even better. The creative teams on this.
That's why I'm getting them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're going to launch something like this, they're supportive characters in the Superman comics, of course, but they're not superheroes themselves,
right?
Generally speaking,
right.
Although they've both had their history of doing so or being so.
Sure.
So how do you get people interested? If you're not already interested in those characters, well, you put writers such as Greg Rucka on Lois Lane with artist Mike Perkins, and Matt Fraction is writing Jimmy Olsen with artist Steve Lieber.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just super excited. The Lois Lane for me was a given. With Rucka being on, even if Rucka wasn't on it, chances are, unless it had somebody on it that I really did not like, I was going to pick up the Lois Lane book, just because I do think Lois Lane is really an interesting character with her job and her talent and the way comics as a general rule have portrayed her. I just think you could write some really interesting stuff with her. So I was excited about that anyway. But the Jimmy Olsen book, I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Have you read a lot of Jimmy Olsen? The Adventures of Jimmy Olsen, or Superman,
not a lot.
Al,
no.
Jimmy Olsen, whatever.
No, I've read a few issues because this that's the book that DC put Kirby on,
right,
when he came over,
right,
and totally transformed it as Kirby has wanted to do.
Right. So, but in that comic, it's kind of isn't it kind of a goofy comic? Like, he gets himself into like really bizarre whatever. So it's kind of it's not just him going around taking pictures, right? I mean, it's.
Oh, no. Well, like I said, I've only read a little bit, so
I've not read hardly anything. I've just seen lots of covers, and the covers are always just like extremely crazy. I mean, it's a comic book that if I found them at cheap prices, I would pick up the old comics based just on the covers, because the covers are always so crazy kind of a thing. So I am assuming that this is going to be Matt Fraction and Steve Lieberman just kind of going nuts on this, riffing on that to some degree, which to me would be super fun. Steve Lieberman is excellent at visual comedic timing and whatnot. Now maybe his style of art isn't for everybody, as far as like, it doesn't look, fancy superhero art or whatever, but he is, if you've read like Superior Foes of Spider-Man and whatnot, he has gags in those books that are his. They're not the writers, they're his, that are just hilarious. The Fix also just got some visual gags in it. They're just brilliant.
Right.
So I am, I don't know. I just think it's going to be, I'm so excited for that. That's like which is ridiculous that I'm excited over a Jimmy Olsen book, but I am. I am. So
and I'm tickled that you are so excited about this.
yeah.
But yeah, Damien asked, "Are these comics going to be ongoing?" And I don't know the answer to that.
My
I
understanding
assumed
was
so, but I don't know.
right. My understanding is the idea is that it's ongoing, but clearly that doesn't mean that.
Right. Robotters 100 says Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is some of my fave comics of all time. Cannot wait for this series of books. And that's Robotters 100 also notes that the Fourth World that's where the Fourth World, Kirby introduced the Fourth World was in the Jimmy Olsen book.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I'm really curious about is Fraction and Lieber going to play on that? Are they going to touch on the Fourth World characters in this new Jimmy Olsen book? Considering that we have the Female Furies book out right now,
Right.
Darkseid is back in the horrible Justice League Odyssey book.
Yeah.
So the Fourth World characters are there and they're present and they're being explored in some ways. So,
and I'm a big fan of Matt Fraction as a writer, and we're finally have him in the DC universe, which working at DC for anything, which he, up to this point hasn't been. Not that I've been blown away by all of his Marvel work. There's some stuff there I loved and some stuff that was tragic. I'm tickled to see what exactly that's going to go on with those books and whatnot, for sure.
Damien also noted that goofy transformations and silly plots was a big part of Jimmy Olsen. Now, what I don't know though is was that part of after Kirby arrived? Did he also do that? Because I know that was before. That was in the Silver Age stuff. But when Kirby got on the book, did that kind of stuff continue, or was Jimmy Olsen more of a player in the larger Fourth World story that Kirby was just starting to craft?
That's a good question.
I guess I just need to go read some Jimmy Olsen. You know what's available on the DC Universe app is some Jimmy Olsen books.
Oh, I mean,
I think. I'm pretty sure I saw those.
Huh.
All right. So you just mentioned how Matt Fraction is now at DC. Well, here's a jump. It's a very tenuous connection here, but Michelle Fief's Copra is going to go to Image now. Copra is. Are you familiar with this book, Travis?
I have seen other people talking about the book and me going, I screwed up somewhere by not knowing about this book when it first came out, and have not gone and picked it up, which I know I need to, because the people that talk about it are huge, like Suicide Squad type fan people that really love the Osterman's run of Suicide Squad, which I really love. So I've just always been, like I said, curious, but missed it. So with this new opportunity of it coming to a new place, I will probably I'll probably pick it up. My question is it's going on, or are they reprinting what's already been?
What I think I read was that they're going to be reprinting the material. If it's ongoing, if they're going to continue the stuff, I'm sure that they'll do that too. But
okay,
I'm pretty sure they're going to do the collected editions, which is why I wanted to talk about this, because I've long heard about this work. And have always wanted to read it, but it is a work that Fief has done that was inspired by the John Ostrander written Suicide Squad run.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe you haven't read that.
I know, right? but here's the thing. Like I said, I think I mentioned this earlier. It's available on the DC Universe app. And so now I downloaded everything that they had available. So I want to read that so that I can go then and read Fief's Copra, because I want to see that that relationship between the two works.
Yeah.
And all I've heard over the years is how Michelle Fief is just a wonderful cartoonist. And it can't just be his version of Ostrander's Suicide Squad. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't have garnered the attention over the years that it has.
Right.
I can only assume that.
Well, right. That it's a love letter as opposed to a aping of. Would be my take on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a bunch of
Yep.
new different kind of work that I've not been exposed to. And then also this like I said, there's some certain themes going on in the news this time. Very similar in its structure here. Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo is going to IDW. After 24 years at Dark Horse, it's now going to IDW Publishing. So that's really interesting. Again,
what blows my mind is 24 years of being in one place, and then pull up tent poles and go someplace else. It just kind of surprises me. It's just like, oh, okay. I mean,
Well, Dark Horse has certainly taken some hits recently. They lost the Star Wars licensing. Now Usagi Yojimbo, some other things I can't that I'm not. It's not coming to the front of my mind at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, it's their Dark Horse is in a very interesting state, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's again another work that I've heard over the years is just incredible that I've never read.
Right. I think I may have read a couple issues by accident, just because a rabbit walking around the samurai sword is like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is just not something that I'm generally interested in, whatnot. I might try a few issues. It's a black and white comic. My understanding is that it's going to go to color, I think, in the IDW version of it, whatnot. So they're going to collect the old stuff and continue on with new stuff.
Yes, exactly.
That's my understanding how that's going to work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up at least the first collection of that just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And Travis, I threw this in last second. I just added it this morning to the list, just to have a little bit of Marvel news in here. But this is still interesting. The company or publisher, I'm not sure if the distinction is even worth mentioning, but this entity called Serial Box is partnering with Marvel Comics to tell new serialized stories about some of the Marvel characters. Black Panther, Black Widow, Jessica Jones, and Thor are the ones that were mentioned specifically. I was not aware of this company, Serial Box, but what they're going to do with the Marvel characters is they're going to do what they call long-form serialized stories, hence serial, which play out like a season of television. So, as it says here, each season is composed of 10 to 16 individual installments, which take about 40 minutes to read. Each one is designed to be read on its own, but also conveys a season-long storyline. So, just like a comic book, only no pictures.
Right.
But what I found really interesting about this is that the similarities to that model doesn't end there. As it says, instead of individual authors writing a single work on their own, they bring in a writer's room of writers to produce the stories, like a TV show does.
Right.
So that's I've always been interested in prose versions of my favorite superhero characters. I have a bunch of old Marvel novels that I collected over the years that I read on my bookshelf. I've never gotten rid of them, even though I've only read them once. They're still on my bookshelf.
Right.
All those years ago. So anytime, and plus, I've done my own writing. I'm not an artist, even though I talked earlier about aping George Perez's style in the stuff that I drew. I never developed that, unlike our friend Greg. And so I turned to what I could do, which was actually put words on a piece of paper and make a story. So that aspect of superhero fiction really interests me. And so this whole Serial Box thing is definitely up my alley, I guess. But the way that they're approaching it is very different than anything that I've encountered in terms of fiction publishing. So that interesting that Marvel is dabbling in that kind of stuff. Obviously we have the movies, we had the Netflix series, those adaptations. More recently, they did an original story featuring Wolverine that was an audio story. It was a fiction podcast that they're also going to do another season of. And to tie that back to Cereal Box, they're also going to be adapting whatever they come up with as far as the stories that will be released as audio stories as well.
Right.
So, DC's focusing more on getting their comics into other venues, but Marvel is certainly exploring the other options as far as other media goes. So,
right. Other ways of using their using their product and whatnot. Yeah, I hadn't heard about this at all, or the company or anything about it whatsoever until I saw one of the creators talking about it on Twitter. Alex DeCampi is one of the writers who's going to be writing on it and whatnot. And she was basically talking about it just in the sense of, she is a writer who's on the margins as far as the big two go and whatnot. She doesn't play nice as far as they're concerned with how they deal with stuff. And so she calls them on their shenanigans. She's a creator who's spent a lot of years going after DC for the fact some of the editors who they've removed for being sexual predators and that sort of thing and whatnot. So clearly she kind of has blown her bridges up to try and get into working for the big two, I think, in a lot of ways. And she was just commenting on the fact that it's interesting how, just kind of doing her own thing. She's kind of backdoored her way into working on big two, products, maybe not in the comics right now, but still she is, she is working through Cereal Box, working on Marvel stuff and whatnot. So I thought it was interesting. Like I said, I'd never heard of it before. The whole writer room thing. How does that work for a book? I don't know how it works for a show either. So I find that fascinating from a pure craft standpoint. How that works and whatnot. I'm lazy. Best chances are I would listen to it as an audio book before I would read it. I have too much stuff to read. I wouldn't have time to actually sit down and read it too. So, and it depends on what kind of access. I mean, if I have to download and pay for yet another streaming service, then that may chase me away from it too. So,
well, yeah, it says the stories can be read via the company's app and website.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever. I don't know. Obviously, I would think you'd have to purchase these to access them. So, but still, I just find it very fascinating. Do you remember years and years ago, Travis, when we teamed up and created some characters and produced a 3-issue story? It was our attempt at doing something similar to this.
Right.
Where we combine our talents. So I wrote issue 1 and 3 and you wrote issue 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget, did you do all 3 covers?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, yes, that's right. So, like I said, I used to write original superhero fiction. Travis and I we experimented with this particular story, these 2 characters. And so, I vaguely recall, we would just kind of talk about the plots the plot of it, and then we'd go off and write the story. Right. So it's not quite the same thing as what they're describing here, but I mean, that alone was just like, I don't know. I don't remember much about the process really between us, but I do recall just us talking about it and making sure that we hit certain beats in the story.
Right. Well, and having to make concessions for what one person's ideas versus another person's ideas too.
Right, so, because we were writing them sequentially. So I wrote issue 1, then you wrote issue 2, and then I wrote issue 3. So whatever. Right. It's kind of like a game of what's that game where you, I don't know the name of it, but you say or write something, and then someone. Right. I mean, we did this exercise in a fiction writing class in high school. I remember where somebody would write a paragraph or whatever, and then give it to the next person. They write it. And then so you're developing this story through
Right.
through all these different people, and it could go in wacky, weird places, as it often did. But I mean, obviously, that's not what we were trying. We weren't trying to
Right.
do weird things. We were trying to tell a particular story. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. And Damien says, "Show us these collector's items."
Oh, God.
I don't think so. I don't think so, Damien.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. We should try that again sometime, Travis.
Oh, man.
Okay. All right. We are going to end. Comic Craig says, "Do you see those issues, fellas?" Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
I still have those. I have that somewhere on my bookshelf.
Yeah. Mine are in a box behind a bunch of other boxes somewhere. So
I'll have to talk to Travis about maybe taking some pictures of the covers and see if he's okay with that.
well, yeah, then they can find out where I cover swiped everything from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because most of
what
them
we did.
because most of them are swipes from other art. So yeah.
Name that issue. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. I did the same thing with all my stuff too. Okay. Finally, we're going to end with some discussion about some news coming out of the Comics Pro meeting that happened a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
A few things I thought were really interesting. One, we'll start off with DC's publishing changes that came out, and it's where and I think you talked about this on your comic book roundtable 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording that I watched. The new 22, that was the line that was going around Twitter, because DC is talking about cutting its line, or has cut. I'm not sure what's going on there. Cut its line by 10 to 15%. It says a cut which has already taken place. It's also cutting its collections. They're not going to be putting out as many trades as well, because they're seeking to concentrate on. I'm sorry, Damien just said Travis is Greg Land. I saw that. That's awesome. Okay, back to the Comics Pro. Seeking to concentrate on stronger titles there as well. Apparently, there was some rumors going around that the 100-page DC Giants at Walmart were being canceled, and Dan DiDio came out on Facebook and said, "No, they are not.
We're expanding.
They're expanding. The returns have been very low, and the program to DC's or in DC's mind has been a great success." So there's that, and then also there's been some layoffs at DC. There's been some shuffling of jobs. So I was seeing all this news come out around that time, and getting very nervous about what they're going to be offering, because the joke is, what are we going to get? Just a bunch of Batman books, right? But I talked on Twitter about if they're going to cut back and try and concentrate on stronger titles, then will they be willing to take more chances and and publish things that they probably wouldn't if they wanted to? I don't know, whatever stronger titles means to them. So very very nervousness, or I get a sense of nervousness, from myself about this news. Right. So that was the first stuff that we heard about, I think, coming out of there. So there's that. DC's doing that.
Well, you'll love that.
Say what do you want to say about that, Travis?
You love that because you had listed here these bullet points. You kind of touched on those bullet points, but what the last bullet point from this article out of Comics Beat was, despite the cutbacks and layoffs, DC won't be cutting the rates of the freelancers, which is good, and will continue to develop talent, but that talent will be more closely aligned with DC's publishing plans. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So what talent are they develop? What talent have they been developing? They've been developing talent that hasn't been in line with their things, or, I don't know, what do you have to fill out a questionnaire beforehand so they get a sense that you're a yes man for the Trinity and that's it before they develop you? I don't understand. That makes me nervous, because to me that makes it sound like we're going to develop talent, but not necessarily creative talent that's going to create a product for it. I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems it's a weird statement, because it feels like, well, it's one of those things that feels to me like it's curtailing creativity versus production.
Yes.
And
that was my fear as well.
Well, and I think that those of us who've read books for a long time start looking back over the expanse of DC, and some of the stuff that some of the quote unquote great work, some of it is taught at university level stuff, would not exist if there was we're only producing this much stuff and it has to be on brand, or whatever the words they want to use. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't see things like Watchmen, or a lot of that stuff just wouldn't exist. And then I'm not, would the world be better off without? Whatever. But I think it's a piece of good work that that wouldn't exist otherwise. The Swamp Thing wouldn't have gone through what it went through without it. Most of the Vertigo line would not exist, because they were regular time before there was a Vertigo line. These were regular books that people were taking a chance on being different. And are we going to get that? I don't know. That whole feels very chilling as far as, right. I mean, it's not a funny joke if all we're going to get is, 3 Superman titles, 4 Batman titles, begrudgingly one Wonder Woman title, and that's kind of it. That's scary. I mean, that's not fun. So, I mean, I guess it's good for me. It'll help my pocketbook a whole bunch, because there'll just be a lot less superhero books I'll pick up, I guess. But I don't know. That part of it's like, ooh.
Well, we'll come back to that last point that you brought up, because something else that another person at the Comics Pro meeting brought up touches on that. But the next bit was a talk from Bob Wayne, who was used to work at DC Comics. He was in charge of sales and marketing there, and he's had different roles over the years. But so there's a bunch of quotes I'm gonna be reading a lot here, so bear with me. Some points that he brought up that I want to touch on. So he says, when you relaunch a character, you have to give the audience what they think they want, or something that the vast majority of them see as a clear change for the better. Change alone is not automatically an improvement. For example, when Frank Miller took over the pencils on Daredevil, it was clearly better than what had come before it. When Marv Wolfman and George Perez revitalized the New Teen Titans, it may not have been what fans expected, but it was clearly better. Relaunching every 6 months is almost always not going to be better. But that's the trick, right? Is to know, going back to developing the talent, being more closely aligned with DC's publishing plans. Is the stuff that's coming going to be better? How are they going to gauge that? Who's the ultimate ruler of that is us, the buying public. I mean, they can think all they want that they've got the next Frank Miller's Daredevil or whatever, and it just doesn't resonate with us, the readers, the buyers. So that's interesting. Obviously he's clearly correct, but that's in hindsight. I knew, as soon as I read, because I had read, Teen Titans comics before I read New Teen Titans. And so I knew that was different. And given Perez and what they were doing with that first arc with the New Teen Titans, it was clearly, this is something to pay attention to. And I'm sure if I'd been reading Daredevil at that time, and with Frank Miller coming on, I would have noticed it as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Wayne continues, I believe we're now in a period of change. You'll need to encourage those changes. And so remember, he's talking to retailers. He's talking to publishing folks as well, mostly the retailers, I believe. You'll need to encourage those changes, and you'll want to nurture them when they occur. A sidebar to some of you. Praising positive actions will help you more in the long term than a withering critique of how you would have done it better. We're going to come back to that in a second, or in a few minutes. I've been on the retailer side and I've been on the publisher side. Trust me on this one. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
One change in our industry, and this paragraph that I want to read is really why I want to bring this up. This goes back to, in a tangential way, the Dwayne McDuffie Awards. One change in our industry to me is inarguably for the better. So let me be clear. I believe that inclusion is important to the future of comics, and I believe in the power of tolerance, diversity, and representation. I don't believe that comics should be set in stone based on how they looked when any of us were children. It's time to get back to basics. Retailers who care about comics, selling them to readers who care about comics. And there's a bunch of stuff that I cut out. Those are just the highlights that I wanted to talk about here. So I encourage people to go find that article and read everything that Mr. Wayne said. But I mean, he's right? There's nothing there that we fundamentally disagree with.
Right. The whole "don't complain" part is curious. That's from he says he's worked both sides, but clearly he's been in publishing longer than he's been in retail. As far as that goes, I think you have every right to critique the stuff that you think is, wrong. Maybe how you critique it might be.
I think that's probably what he was really getting at. It's the way that you do it instead of actually having legitimate concerns about how the comic publishing industry is going.
Right. Those last paragraphs I think is interesting. The whole, basically the future is, inclusion and all of that, which I don't disagree with at all. I do think it's interesting when he says is that he doesn't believe the comics should be set in stone on how they look when any of us were children, which I get. That's to me, that's like a straight out dig at the whole comic skater thing. And I'm thinking comics worked so great back in the day and nothing should change. And Thor should always be a guy and all of that. Cause that's one of the hardest. Even people who I know that are, embrace there being a diverse cast of people and whatnot, don't necessarily want their favorite character suddenly becoming something else, though they haven't, but somebody replaces them, kind of thing. They, I think that anybody who read the Jane Foster as Thor and enjoyed that immensely. But I do know that when she first became Thor and Odin's son was regulated off to the side, even people who embrace diversity as a general rule were not happy with that because this is Thor and that isn't Thor, kind of a thing. So sometimes that's hard to let go of as a fan because you're a fan of a character for a particular reason. So, hard to let go of that when whatever you like suddenly gets, feels like it gets put to the side or whatever.
Oh, sure.
So I empathize with the sane person, the sane person who goes, wait, that's not what I'm, used to reading or whatever. But same time, you got this awesome story out of it and whatnot. And representation is huge. It is, because us old white guys are dying. We're disappearing. and somebody else needs to be reading comics, and right now, in my opinion, it's still the engine that drives the comic market is still, unfortunately, Marvel and DC. So you need to find young people, ways to get young people to be reading those things. Either that, or they need to figure out how to get them to jump in the other end of the markets heavy enough to allow the market to continue.
Mhm.
At least for as long as I'm alive. Once I'm dead, the comic book market can crash and burn and do what the hell it wants to. I don't care.
Oh God,
Just,
no.
just save the hobby at least as long as I'm around.
Oh my gosh. I just want to point out, David in the chat said, I would love for DC to start doing more mini and maxi series to test the water and see what the market wants. Now, that's something that I particularly loved about DC. Well, Marvel too, I guess, in the early 80s. They did that. Mm-hmm. They would experiment with this third or fourth tier character just to see, what would stick, essentially. And, from some of those things, some great stuff came eventually. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. I've made that comment myself a few times on Twitter in recent months, because I would like to see that as well. Yeah. So that's one way that they could do that. Mm-hmm. However, considering what we just talked about, it makes me wonder if they will do anything like that going forward.
Right.
So yeah, it's as Mr. Wayne said, we're in a, what do you say? I believe we're now in a period of change. I think that is the is a contender for biggest comment about comic books at the moment. But mm-hmm. So okay, so moving on. This is the last thing. So Brian Hibbs, are you familiar with Mr. Hibbs, Travis?
Only through this article, reading his credentials as far as what he has done and whatnot. I mean,
so yeah,
he's kind of a firebrand, right? I mean, he's kind of a
he's very much a spokesperson in a way, in some sense. He's a retailer, but he also writes. Is it for Newsarama or is it for CBR? I forget now. He writes the tilting.
That's CBR. The tilting windmills, yeah,
tilting into windmills, or I think that's the
Don Quixote-esque whatever title.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he often provides commentary about the comic book publishing, what's going on in comic book publishing. Mm-hmm. So he had some things to say. He actually had a 10-point plan to save the comic book industry. Is how the comic book media is promoting this, but right. I'm not going to get into his 10-point plan. I want to talk about some of his comments. Mm-hmm. So he starts off with, we have, as I see it, two major problems at the publisher level. One of content and one of the amount of product. In terms of content, while I think that we're at a golden age of comics right now, with more amazing material being published than ever before, the base level of quality of our core periodical product in the direct market, the driver of sales and success in our market, both in the superhero universe material as well as most licensed and creator-owned titles, is at a near historical nadir. So yeah, it's those 2 points, one of content and one of the amount of product. And I want to get to that in a second. However, he says, creators are encouraged to write for page counts of pre-scheduled collections rather than crafting each individual periodical release to be satisfying in and of itself, and only allowing the best of that material to go on to permanent book format collection. So he's getting into some of these things that Mr. Wayne talked about. He's getting into some of the touching on some of the news that we just discussed about DC's cutting back of things. And remember several Breaking Late News episodes ago, Travis, when we commented on Dan DiDio's comments about there's too much stuff being published. Mm-hmm. And as I recall, we were a bit critical of Mr. DiDio regarding that comment.
Well, because he's saying everybody else is producing too much stuff, not that he...
Perhaps. But I find it interesting now, all these months later, mm-hmm. that his words being echoed elsewhere, mm-hmm. And how that may impact not only DC Comics, but other publishers as well. He continues on, there are also plainly entirely too many SKUs in the market, which is, in case people are unaware what SKU is, it's just an item for sale. A comic is an item for sale. Mm-hmm. At the front of the process, how did we enter a world where they're offering us 12 different Spider-Man branded comics in a single 4-week period? When exactly did we cross the Rubicon that suggested that bi-weekly or faster production was the right way to make comics, and how customers actually want to purchase comics? Please listen. We are destroying and devaluing our blue chip stocks rather than drawing in the vast Muggle audience to purchase our products. I have to say, I don't necessarily disagree with him on certain points. Specifically, why do we need, I don't know what the actual number is, but his number of 12 different Spider-Man comics in a month, and bi-weekly shipping of titles. I won't even get into $3.99 and up prices, right? So it's interesting, and he didn't even get into, I don't think, or at least not as far as the stuff that I grabbed for our discussion. He didn't even get into variant covers, which that's I've read a lot of things recently about how that's one aspect of what is causing some issues publishing wise.
Yeah, I think in that whole thing he does touch on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's your reaction to that bit? I saw you crinkle your nose.
Well, I don't like being referred to as a Muggle, first and foremost.
Well, I don't think he's talking about us. I think he's talking about the potential audience that hasn't discovered comics or is aware of them, but isn't the weekend or the Wednesday Warrior. Right.
Right. Yeah. Clearly I'm not a retailer, so I don't know. I could take guesses as to what's going on, by what the stuff we read and whatnot. But I agree. I agree. You want to be a Spider-Man fan, but using his example, which I don't think is real. There's not 12 things tied to Spider-Man, I don't think, but there are a lot. Just like there's a lot of Batman, there's a lot of X-Men stuff. I don't, this is an example. I don't touch the X-Men stuff because there's too much of it now. I would love to go back to reading the X-Men. I read them in the Claremont days and loved them to death, and I kind of moved away from them, and I've kind of wanted to go back to it. But it's all over the map, and I know that anytime I touch an X-Men book, it's inevitably within 4 issues, it's going to be tied into the other, 3 or 4 X-Men book that are out there, and that's unattainable. And I'm one of the rich people buying comic books. I can buy lots of comic books. I only have so much time, so I don't want to venture into all of that. Give me a core book and let me read it. I stepped away from Superman because it started to feel like I was missing part of the story if I wasn't getting Action Comics and Superman together. So it's all stuff I'm walking away from because I can't just get the thing I want. I don't want to. I do collect 2 Batman books right now, because I'm enjoying Batman and I always get Detective Comics, but I'm about ready to be done with Detective Comics. Not because they're tying into each other. I'm just not interested in both of them. Plus, they both come out twice a week, so I'm technically getting 4 Batman books a month, which is too much. I don't need 4 Batman books a month. So, I get it. I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's wrong on it. So.
Well, apparently I should have continued with the next line because you touched on exactly what Mr. Hibbs next says, which is publishers are treating the customers as super fans who are bottomless ATM machines.
I like that reference.
Yeah, that actually resonates with me as well. Mm-hmm. But every working retailer in this room can tell you that this doesn't match the reality of our customers, who are the people who want or even can afford this endless barrage of material clumping down the pipeline, is narrowing and hollowing out month after month, and is soon going to hit a number that is probably not sustainable for any of us.
Right. Oh, well, because I know that I am an exception to the rule of just about anybody else, with a few exceptions. There's a few of us that are old enough and financially enough that we can kind of buy what we want to without having as much concern about budget. I'm saying I sound like I'm some rich asshole or something, but you're
the 1% of the comic book crowd,
right, exactly. Which is not the case. I don't buy everything, and I don't want to buy everything. But for me personally, money is less of a crimp than just what do I have time to read and how much crap do I want to read in the process of it and whatnot. But I know I'm the exception. I know 100% that I am the exception. Most people are, as comic books keep going up in price and whatnot, most people are, okay, how do I crimp my pull list down to this or whatever? Or how do I, make that, cheaper? And it's not like I'm not using resources to make my comic book purchasing cheaper. I am. I buy my stuff through a company that offers me, deep discounts because I'm ordering way in advance and, all of that kind of stuff and whatnot. But for sure, David Lee's in the comments right now, cranks out a video just about every day and whatnot. Awesome guy. He did the math, I believe, on Marvel's War of the Realms that's coming up. And if you want the entire storyline, the first month is $200 with the comic books. Just War of the Realms. That's getting all the stuff. Now I don't know anybody who gets all the stuff anymore. Me and Damien had a conversation a little bit last night about this on the roundtable. And there was somebody in the comment that said that they had gotten all of the Siege stuff. And that was the last time that they had bought everything for an event. I mean, because how do you? How do you? I mean, if you were really excited about this, I'm not picking on Marvel, but just War of the Realms, it's the new thing that's out right now. If you were really excited about it and wanted to see it all, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you just forget about all your other comics you're buying just to get that? I don't know, or how much of it do you miss?
Getting all that would be more than my budget for everything that I currently purchase. So that's too much. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, that seems, granted, the argument is you don't have to buy it all. Well, duh. But why produce something when you can't, that people can't get it all? I mean, let's be realistic. You can't get it all, kind of a thing. Well, but it's never been the point, I don't think, for either DC or Marvel that their readers would purchase everything. They're trying to provide a range of material that would appeal to various different people.
But in the case of an event, though, it's all encompassed under the same thing.
So I still think that applies.
So I don't think so, because I think that would make you. I would think that would make you more inclined to want to get it because it's all part of the same thing.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm for any event, I've never looked at it like I have to get everything to be able to enjoy the story to its fullest or to experience, the event in its fullest in any way. It was just a matter of which characters am I more interested in relation to that event.
Right. And I'm, like I said, there have been a couple times that I've basically walked away. I'm clearly a DC fan. I've walked away from an entire month of DC purchasing of stuff because they pull some sort of shenanigan that I don't want to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I completely agree with the comment about the fact that we are being treated like ATM machines and they're banking on us and we know that we're disappearing. Us super fans are disappearing, and it's not realistic for new people coming up to be those super fans, or they get excited, they buy all the stuff, get burnt, and then completely walk away from comics after they've been, burnt on whatever thing came up that they not knowing. Because I mean, there's a certain amount of education involved in collecting comics. There is. You're reliant either on the retailer to clue you in if you're like new or not. So if you're new into comics and this War of the Realm thing comes up and you're excited for it, if you don't know, you're trying to buy it all. Oh my gosh, how can I afford all of this stuff? Then you're burnt on it. And the retailer's not going to go, oh, no, you don't need to buy all that. The retailer, chances are, is going to go, hell yeah, let's buy it all. Because they're there to sell books. Depending on what kind of a crappy retailer you have, I would hope they'd be one that went, ooh, careful here. But, I don't know. I definitely think that it's a thing. I think it's curious, and then you ended at the end of this. It looks like Dan Didio was right, which I think is hilarious because you're never going to get me to say that.
I know.
But some of his other comments that he had in that article, it's an interesting article. I mean, I don't 100% agree with the guy, and Damian has some interesting comments about him that, he has been somebody who's been around for a long time, talking about the behavior of publishers and whatnot is going to just sink the comic industry. And he's been saying that for a long time.
Yeah, Damian says he's always been a doomsayer.
Right.
and yeah, I've encountered that as well.
Yeah, but it's just taking longer for the doom to happen. Are we getting to that point? I mean, some of the stuff that we're saying is owie stuff was some stuff that 7 years ago he was saying is going to be a problem, and it's just continued to be a problem. Part of that article is like 10% of the comic book stores have shuttered in the last year or something like that, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, you figure out your market or you don't exist as a small business. I think that's just the reality. I have to admit, reading all this stuff makes me even more scared of the idea of venturing into being a comic book shop retailer myself. It's one of those kind of wild fantasy things. If I want enough money, I retire and open up a comic book shop. That would be cool, right? But some of this stuff sounds scary, and I don't know how. I mean, I don't know how you navigate. Of a retailer aspect, I don't know how they navigate it. To be honest, the whole variant cover shenanigans and whatnot that go on. I like to tell myself, no, I would. At some point you have to tell your customers, sorry, I'm not going into debt here, so you can get that Jim Lee cover. It's not going to cover my cost. I guess you have to go someplace else. And maybe that's hard to tell your customers. You're going to have to go someplace else, especially if there are other stores around. I would be lucky where I live. There are no other stores, so I would have a monopoly as far as that goes. But all that kind of stuff is whatever. One of the things that you left out in his article I thought was interesting, he kind of goes after editors and the whole what an editor does now. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that his comment was he didn't feel like the editors now are not groomed to edit good books. Editors now are groomed to keep the wheels on the bus and do this other kind of social media, not necessarily, but they're more of the personnel shuffle aspect of it, not craft aspect of it. That's right. What their editors are being groomed for, the personalities that are making the book, not groomed to make the book a better book. They aren't getting out their red pen and going, this isn't. That's his opinion. I don't know how does he know? I mean, that's one of those things. I'm always curious what editors actually do in comic books, and I don't know how he knows either. I mean, is he in the room with the editors to know what they're, or not? Or is he just saying, I think all these books suck, and they suck because an editor didn't take care of business? And maybe so. I don't know.
I imagine that certain comic book editors that I follow on Twitter would greatly object to his characterization of their work.
Yeah. Well, right. Would like to throw punch that guy. I get it, but I thought it was interesting. And to some degree, it does seem that way at times to me. But I mean, like I said, at the same time, it's one of those things. How do you know? Because you're not there. I'm not there to know what an editor's up to or not up to. Until I hear a horror story about it, then I know, I guess. But
well, you brought up the number of shops closing, and part of the reason I didn't include that is because I did see a response to that from, I think, the Comicron folks
saying that's not true.
Yeah, basically, calling into question his numbers.
Yeah, well, right. He just threw something out, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and his numbers include, and because he was asked about it, the Comicron folks or person asked him specifically, where'd you get the numbers? What does this entail really? And so it included a lot of things that are considered hobby shops, but not necessarily comic book direct market shops.
So any place that sells comics? Oh, okay.
Yeah, potentially. Right. So yeah, the numbers are probably a little off, but really, I mean, that's an example of something that I am very curious about is, what is the reaction to this? Because this just came out a few days ago.
Right.
Yeah, just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, they were publicly getting to see it. Mm-hmm.
Right. But I'm and I did see, like, I saw the Comicron post on Twitter, or the thread on Twitter. I saw another thread from somebody else whose name I'm blanking on at the moment. But it was just kind of a general reaction to what Mr. Hibbs was talking about. Mm-hmm. Basically saying comics have been dying, quote unquote, dying for decades, and we're still around. We have to make adjustments and all this kind of stuff. So some people are seeing the glass is half empty, and some are seeing as the glass is half full.
Right.
And so I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the answer. I'm not a retailer. I'm not a publisher, but
Well,
like you though, I'm very nervous about the future of it. And unlike you, I know you don't really mean this, but unlike you, I want the industry to continue
yes,
even long after I'm dead,
100%.
for future generations. I would love my granddaughter, my beautiful granddaughter, who is turning 2 this here in a few months. I would love for her to grow up and become a lover of comic books like her grandfather, and then of course everybody else. But so yeah, it's interesting times in which we live, I believe, is the only phrase that I can offer is any kind of comment on this. But it's really interesting to see these perspectives from Mr. Hibbs, from Mr. Wayne, from other people, talking to a specific audience, not the general buying public like us,
Right.
but to the retailers and the publishers, and to see what comes next, I guess.
Right. Well, I appreciate everybody's voice in it and whatnot, and I don't take any of these people at 100% face value. I mean, they've all got everybody that we have a thing from has some sort of skin in the game, in some fashion or another. So clearly it's, unless it's hard data, it is one person's opinion versus another person's opinion, kind of the thing. It's interesting watching some of those different people's opinions start to gel, though, as far as, like DC, some of the choices they're making, this retailer person, what he's saying about the volume of books that are on the shelves, and that stuff's starting to jive now, whether or not they're talking to each other or listening to each other, or there's been enough of that feedback, or DC's got something else going on, and this is just easy for them to piggyback off of it and make it sound like that's part of why they're, truncating what they're truncating or whatever. I don't know, but it's interesting. So unfortunate is, as we talk about that, we DC heavy, whatever, we just haven't heard anything out of Marvel to know what their publishing plan is, other than we're cranking out a bunch of books. We don't know what's going on. They've been strangely quiet, or tight-lipped, or I don't think I'm missing it, because I'm not a Marvel super fan, but they're part of the industry. They pull the industry whatever direction they choose to go because they put out so much stuff and sell so much stuff. So I do pay attention. Just really haven't seen anything. It seems like since what's his name became the EIC, that it's kind of things of they talk less and we're seeing less. It's not Baru, right? What is his name?
Sapolsky?
Yes. Yeah. We just hear a lot less, it seems. Other than him occasionally coming on Twitter and putting his foot in his mouth, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's all interesting stuff. It's one of those kind of things where sometimes I tell myself I shouldn't look because I'd be happier just, reading my comics and not knowing, but can't look away either, kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's given this digital age, this newfangled technology.
Yep. Yeah.
We can't help but be immersed in it.
Right.
And yeah, I've often felt that way too, Travis. It was like all this behind the scenes stuff and rumors about people and behaviors, and we're just blissfully reading our comics and going, oh, this is really cool. And now we can't help but know that, such and such a person is a jerk, and
right.
DC's doing this and Marvel's doing that. And, it's, so yeah, it's be careful what you wish for, I guess, is maybe the operative phrase here, because we as fans, when we were growing up, I remember it was like, how cool would it be to work at DC or Marvel or whatever,
right.
and be involved in the creation of this stuff. And I don't know that I'd want that. I think I'm just happy being the recipient of the product itself,
right,
and not have to worry about the ins and outs and the politics. And yeah. but yeah, like I said, interesting times. I'm really curious what I'll be focused on finding out more reactions to the Comics Pro meeting.
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously nothing's going to change overnight. We still have to see what the impact of what DC's changes are going to be
Right.
long term.
When does that start happening? When do we start seeing less of things? And
Well, according to the article, they've already cut, whatever that means, because I don't know that. I mean, some books have ended. I mean, Green Arrow, for example, we talked about that
Mhm.
last time, but that that's one book. What?
right.
I mean, there are obviously others. I just it doesn't seem like overall that they've made any major changes.
Right.
So I imagine we will see that happening in over the next several months.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, that's all the news I had, Travis. Is there anything else that you wanted to throw in last second?
Nope. I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you everybody in the chat who's been talking away. I really appreciate that. For people who are listening to this in the future, they can leave comments on YouTube at below the video. Also, Travis, how can they contact you if they wish to do so? And plug Comic Book Roundtable. Anything else you'd like to throw out there? How can people find you?
Right. So you can contact me through YouTube. My channel is Oddfellows Thoughts. You can hit me up Gmail with Oddfellows Thoughts. And I'm on Twitter. Annoyingly, my Twitter handle there is _Gauntman. Oh no, underscore. Let's see, the _Gaunt_man. Someday maybe I'll change that. But I think if you type in Oddfellows Thoughts, it will pop me up there too. If you're doing a search that way and whatnot. So,
yes.
Yep. Come and check out. I attempt to do a weekly show. I call it a roundtable. Sometimes I have multiple guests on. Sometimes it's just me, and I talk about the prior week's books. I do shoot other videos occasionally where I talk about other stuff and whatnot. We'll see. I'm hoping to do more, but no promises. I got tired of failing on my promises. I'm going to do different videos, but maybe at some point.
I never promise anything. I just put out content.
Yeah, there you go.
In case you are new watching this video on YouTube, or someone's pointed you my way for the podcast that I do, Longbox Review, just go to longboxreview.com. You can find out everything there is to know about the show and all the posts that I have there as far as the videos and the audio podcast feed that I have as well. But if you'd like to send me comments, you can always do so by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at longboxreview, all one word. And I'd be glad to talk comics with you, just as Travis is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With that, I guess, Travis, we're done. No more news until next month, maybe.
Cool.
Hopefully you're still feeling good, and we can go back to our monthly chats.
Definitely.
So we don't take up 2.5 hours of our day catching up on the news. All right. Good talking with you, buddy.
Yep. Same you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.